Being a female and working for conservation, it is indeed a challenge because our job nature is such that it demands us to be physically and mentally strong.
Chimna hebdalu ani alusu tagope homak tingope tel semana jo da na hebdalu de alusu gayami to be rangi jin ani begda di challenge ndusin shunimila.
Good morning, Tharasu. Dari nachinalu jongo begini dun dikaragi si maba khatskai mlengargi lapchi dari anim chikhalungachi smart review and planning gi meeting ji bege semo ngachi smart focal ne sachi ngin tagi ngachi
laksana dana jiwchin la air coverage la ngachi petroleum mam dira lo phatsu bin wala ngachi no sanchar dal ma bege skin la ani do dorula ngachi ani mon la Kami menolak dengan ciri petrolin di yang cusum saya nak fokus begini cuci Tanah lu ngaji long range petrolin, dengan ciri yang kamera 3 months cuma wala sudah. Ani di rate dia cuma ni cuci.
Ani bawa cintu bede cing gara josugos.
Yes.
Ya, okay, all the best.
Good morning. Dari mission dishim khasla zooming achi long range patrolling chamni chuzumna so en route building achi station 2056 na achi camera monitoring bini camera trap su shaji ani ritibigo te achi ani this time gi smart ki patrolling gi data model de gara datuna plan be ana chudi chi sachik chapsh garti chi do smart na to the last reminder 0 chi so patrolling builder handset on bejana dele Ani recording just to get miss Mave. So all the best from my side. Certain part of Baljagakorjo 3 falls under Chuzumgyo, and we are hopeful that we might be able to capture few numbers of tiger images up there where we have installed the camera tag. It is quite challenging to follow the tiger's trail. The tiger's habitat are located in the dense forest where even the local people has not been there, and plus the geographical terrain here is quite risky.
Himari samay confident naman sa nimo lang at chile risisu dele semana joru jo te ansumnya dendi wa dar number da semana joru jo gati optional la berube gara ne dondar bera chaju res juni bela defense naman sa mera joi se juni bela na ani jes lo ni sambar gi aw imbe wala te ngai to chin ani taksun dijum chimbela te ani sambar di tiger di to ngoma imbala an bentignalu an phali ai naksunalu tiger mam chamjum gi ani ngachi expectila.
We never know when we will encounter with the intruders or the poachers. Being a team leader, I also have to think about the safety of my team. Tiger populations are threatened by habitat loss and fragmentation, poaching and illegal wildlife trade. Therefore, it's very important to protect and keep monitoring all tigers. Will it total Martin memo? Bakin jahanam capture asno this time.
Halam hidon mo.
Yeah! We are right now feeling really emotional and proud because this is the first time we are doing intensive camera trapping under Division Forest Officer Tongla, and in this area we have captured tiger for the first time. Previously it was not recorded, so I think it's a very big moment for us, and we are really happy and excited at right now.
Tina lahabe na kema tepina ombe dele kema na lwani tiger sibe ula di ngachi na sim gai sichini la kasi ngachi na ngachi ke hamna lo di na sim ani rare memula tiger di land bending ngachi ni mongpa na do ani mep chuni ni ngatu bola land bending ngachi na tiger de doesn't be ni na sa khachi es no mela ngati china.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carmen Pang, and I am the co-founder and co-director of SWAG, Singapore Wildcat Action Group. Welcome to Day 5 of Singapore Tiger Week 2021. It's been a very busy and inspiring week so far, envisioned as a platform for tiger conservationists from around the world to gather and share their knowledge with the public and to have meaningful conversations with each other. This year's Singapore Tiger Week has so far welcomed 13 speakers from Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, India, Nepal, and Bhutan. In fact, the beautiful video that was playing when everyone was coming in just now was shared with us just yesterday by our speaker from Bhutan, Mr. Kwenli Tenzin. It is yet another beautiful tribute to all those who are doing the hard work of conservation on the front line. Even though World Ranger Day was a few days ago, we think it's still a very appropriate time to celebrate, especially as shown in the video, all the women rangers who are making tremendous contributions and sacrifices day in and day out to keep our wildlife safe. So thank you to all the rangers out there. Okay. Now, after Bhutan, today we continue with track 2 of our program, and we'll be traveling to Russia and Kazakhstan. In a moment, my fellow SWAC co-director and co-founder, Dr. Vilma Di Rosario, will tell you more about today's presentations and introduce our speakers to you. But just like every day before today, I'm gonna take care of a few housekeeping items first. Firstly, all Singapore Tiger Week sessions will be recorded, and the recordings will be available in the SWAT YouTube channel after Singapore Tiger Week concludes. If you go to our website, swatcat.org, you'll find links to all our social media channels, including our YouTube channel. And to minimize distraction, please mute your microphone during the presentation and use the chat function to ask any questions you have for our speakers. We'll be monitoring the chat and we'll try to ask as many questions as possible during the Q&A segment after all the presentations. And just a note for tonight, because our speakers, one of our speakers, Grigory, is dialing in from a remote location, and the internet connection may not, the bandwidth may not be that good. So actually during his presentation, can I ask all of you, in addition to muting your microphone, to also turn off your camera so that we can all focus, so that there's bandwidth for Grigory. Anyway, so lastly, we'd like to take a Wi-Fi with everyone. So for those of you, again, if you would like to be part of this group photo, could you please turn on your camera right now? And Daphne, again, will be helping us take the screenshot. So Daphne, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, just waiting for everyone to put on their cameras. Okay, when you're ready, give me a big smile. People on page 1, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, let me just check. Looking good. Okay, people on page 2, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, looking good. All right, we're good to go.
Thank you, Daphne. And now I am going to hand this over to Vilma. Vilma, please.
Thank you, Carmen. And Daphne, you're going to put on the map. Hello, everyone, and good evening to everyone. And thank you for being here. Today we have Dale Mcwell and Grigory Mazmaniants, both coming from very remote areas in Asia. I doubt many of us have been there. Maybe some of us have. Dale is dialing in from the Russian Far East, and Grigory is dialing in from Kazakhstan, or maybe not Kazakhstan, but somewhere near there, but he's going to be talking about Kazakhstan. Anyhow, both of them are dialing in from very remote areas. Could I have the next slide, please, Daphne? So today we have these two presentations. First of all, Dale will be talking about saving tigers in Asia and looking to the future, as well as saving the Siberian tiger. And Grigory will talk about reintroduction of the Siberian tiger, or the Amur tiger, to Kazakhstan. We will have a question and answer session after both the speakers talk. Today, because we have two speakers, we're giving each of them 30 minutes. And 5 minutes before 30 minutes is up, I will do this. And if the speakers don't see, I'll just interrupt them for a bit so that they could round off their presentation. Okay, we are ready for Dale now. I'm going to introduce Dr. Dale Mcwell. Whoops, that's okay. We have a special little poster for you, Dale. If we can find it. I'll start talking. Dale is no stranger to tiger conservation. Since 1997, he has served as director of the WCS Russia program, promoting big cat conservation in both Russia and China. Today, he leads the WCS Tiger program and works to promote tiger conservation across Asia and the world. Dale will be speaking broadly about the future of tigers in Asia and specifically about his magnificent Siberian tigers. Dale, please. You can share screen. Oh, you're muted, Dale.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, very well.
Okay. Is my screen being shared?
Yes, we can see you, but your screen hasn't been shared yet. So
Okay,
try to share your
again.
screen. Yes.
Is that working?
Yes, it's working. You can put it on full
Okay.
screen now.
See if we can get this. There we go. Okay.
Yes, very good. Everything's great.
Okay, great. Oh, okay, so as Carmen mentioned, I'm in a fairly remote location, and if it helps for people to turn off the video to get larger bandwidth, that would be fantastic, because I have lost connections a number of times over the last couple of days. But I want to thank SWAG for the introduction to participate. I've been trying to listen to as many of the presentations as possible. It's been a very interesting week. And I wanted to take the first part of my presentation to talk about kind of summarizing a lot of what's been said and putting in the context of what we know about tiger conservation. There's a lot of grim news out there about losses of tigers, but there's also reasons for optimism. And I want to share some of those optimistic components of what we're looking to into the future of tigers in Asia. So to start off, I want to make it clear that of all the great cats, and there's many that we all know and love, there's no doubt that the tiger is the most endangered. If you look at the numbers of jaguars, leopards, and lions and cheetahs, even though we think of many of these as rare, none of them are nearly as rare as the tiger. It is the most rare of all the big cats. And we know that one of the major reasons for that, and for the loss of other species really, is the demand for tiger parts. And that demand for tiger parts, for tiger bone and other parts of tigers, is actually partly being met from lions and leopards and even jaguars now. And so to a very large extent, the tiger is at the epicenter of the extinction vortex of all big cats. And so we need to save tigers, not just for tigers, but for all great cats. If we're going to save the great cats of the world, we have to start with tigers, because that's where the problems are. There's really no secret about what those problems are. As I just mentioned, trade and poaching is one of the big issues, but it's not the only issue. We also know that in many places, there are empty forests across Asia where there are no tigers and there's no prey, prey having been taken, snared, or shot out by the local people, and therefore there's no place for tigers to exist there. And of course, we also know that habitat destruction is a major factor in the loss of just places where tigers can live across Asia. So wherever you go across Asia, everywhere there's been declines in tiger populations, and it's some combination of these. In some places, one type of threat is more important than another, but they all have played a factor in the demise of tigers across the countries where they formerly occurred. So in the same way that we know why tigers are disappearing, we also know how to save tigers. And the ingredients are actually relatively simple. We need to have effective law enforcement to stop poaching. We need to manage prey populations so there's an abundance of prey for tigers to live off of. And we need large tracts of intact forests. This is not rocket science. This is a relatively simple recipe, and yet it is exceedingly difficult to achieve those three priorities. And the problem has always been on how you prioritize, how we select what we're going to do to save tigers. There's a geographic component of this question on where in the landscape, where in a country or in a landscape you should focus your efforts. A lot of the work associated with defining where the priority sites are has been done. There's been a series of planning exercises that have defined tiger conservation landscapes, which are the most important places where tigers occur or could occur. And a lot of these are considered priorities based on the numbers of tigers that are in these areas now. We are right now in the process of redoing this tiger conservation landscape assessment. It's called TCL 3.0. And in contrast to the previous efforts, this time we will be putting the whole platform on the web, on a Google Earth Engine platform, and there will be a near real-time monitoring system. So every time there's a new image from the space satellite image, or new information about the impact of humans or where tigers occur in our landscape, this information will be updated. And instead of looking at a static map, we were looking at actually more like a movie of what's happening to the landscapes where tigers exist. So identifying that priority areas is actually something we know how to do. And if you saw Wulan's presentation about Sumatra 2 nights or 3 nights ago, that was a good example of how they went through a process of identifying that priority sites to protect in the Sumatran landscape. But there's also the fact that even if you select the sites where you need the work, there are many threats infringing on any particular site, and there are limited resources that you can apply to deal with those threats. And so how do you deal with that situation? We know a lot about basically what it costs to save tigers. 10 years or so ago, we did an assessment of how much it costs to save tigers. And we know that, again, the recipe is relatively simple. You need to put teams out on the field to do law enforcement. And if they're effective, they will capture poachers. And if they're effective in stopping the poaching, you're going to have tigers on a landscape. And so this is a relatively simple recipe, and yet we know it works. We also have estimated that the cost of effective conservation is somewhere in the order of $930 per square kilometer per year. This was about 10 years ago, so of course it's changed, but I think the general parameters are still the same. If you average that out on all of the landscapes where there are or could be tigers, it comes out to be about $82 million per year needed for effective protection of tigers in the landscapes where they exist. Now we know that that much money is not available for tiger conservation. We know that combined government inputs and money from NGOs comes to something like $47 million. Again, this was 10 years ago, but probably the relative proportions are about the same. And so we have a major shortfall of about $35 million of what we need to save tigers across the entire range versus what we have. And so clearly we need to make difficult decisions. And we know that for many governments that have many problems, social problems and political and economic problems, tigers are not always at the top of the list of things that governments need to do. So we need to be very careful about how we prioritize what we do. And so a lot of what happens in terms of the future for tigers in Asia is going to depend on the future of people in Asia. And we all know that there's a budding population of humans in Asia. We know the infrastructure projects are booming. We know that economies are booming. And when you look at what's happening, things look a little bit bleak because people are thriving, but tigers are not. But I want to talk about the future a little bit in a little bit different perspective and argue that there's some reasons for optimism. We often think about development as being something negative in association with conservation. So if you have development, you're going to lose out on wild places. But what if some kinds of development are better than others? If we look over the past 30, 40 years, for instance, in terms of poverty, 40 years ago, the big international aid organizations were waging a war on poverty. They wanted to eliminate poverty across the world. And today, you don't hear that refrain very much because they've been largely successful. Poverty has been alleviated in all parts of the world and in Asia as well as other places, and is projected to continue to decline into the 2030s. And one of the ways poverty has been alleviated is that people in the rural, poor areas of any country, of any region, have moved to the urban areas where there's more opportunities for jobs, more opportunities for education, and more opportunities for health. There's been a dramatic change in the proportion of people in urban areas from the 1950s to the 1950s to 2050, and globally now about 80 million people per year are moving from rural areas to urban areas. If you think of what this means in terms of tiger habitat in Asia, this is a potential huge plus. We have people leaving the areas where tigers need and going to urban areas. And so this is something we should be encouraging. And if you want to think about what the importance of this is for large carnivore conservation worldwide, look at some of the countries that are well ahead in this process of globalization. In Europe and in North America, where you're seeing amazing recoveries of large carnivore populations in places people never expected. Wolves in Holland, it's unthinkable 30 years ago, and yet they are there now. Bears in Spain doing quite well. These are things that we don't think of, and yet urbanization is allowing recovery of carnivore populations. And so we expect that there's a good possibility that this is going to be happening in Asia as well. The other part of urbanization that is really useful is that as young women become urbanized, they're more likely to get educated, they're more likely to enter the job market, less likely to get married early, less likely to have many kids, because if they're on a farm, they need many children to help take care of a farm, but in the city, you don't need those young kids. And so fertility rates drop with urbanization. So as people move to the cities, we see falling numbers of fertility and we see falling population rates. And in fact, in Asia, the most likely scenario now for how the human population trajectory looks like this, with a peak somewhere around 2050, and then populations across Asia declining to the rest of the century. This is something that is really, that many of us would not expect, and yet the most likely scenario that we see is something like this. Now, it varies from country to country. For instance, this is a comparison of Malaysia and Thailand. In Thailand, the most likely scenario is for a fairly dramatic decrease, whereas Malaysia is more a leveling off. And of course, this is not a guarantee. In any country, there are different potential socioeconomic pathways that countries can go down, what their policies are, what their economics are, and all this will change, among other things, the trajectory of human population growth. Yet the most likely, even here in India, is that there will be a decline in population numbers over the coming century. And so this idea that there might be something like good development that may actually foster conservation is really a new, and for me, it's an enlightening concept. The idea that urbanization could be useful for tiger conservation, that education of young women is useful for biodiversity conservation is really important for us to understand and for us to promote. And so instead of thinking about an Asia that is getting worse and worse and worse, what I think we're looking at is we may be going through a bottleneck. Things are getting worse now. We need to prepare for worse times. But if we can get through that bottleneck, there may be a bright future for tigers in the future if we can get through that period. And so to me, this is a bit more optimistic, but still we need to think about what we need to do today to get through that bottleneck. So here, summarizing a lot of what's been said over the last couple of days, I want to sum up what I think are the key points here. First of all, we need to be very efficient, create what we call functional source sites. You may have heard many of the speakers talk about source sites of core areas. These are places, very simply put, where the birth rates of tigers exceed the death rate, where we have a population that is increasing. By definition, if you don't have at least one place like that in a landscape, your population will go extinct. So if we try to scatter our resources evenly across a huge landscape, we likely will have no major impact on tiger conservation. We need to select priority areas and work on those priority areas to bring back tigers. If in Malaysia right now, which is in a serious situation, spreads out its resources across all landscapes, they likely will fail in their efforts to save tiger conservation. They need to pick those priority sites, Indo-Rampan, Taman Negara, those places where they have to save tigers, and focus on those areas first. That's the way you save tigers, and we've demonstrated this multiple times in the past. Secondly, there are many, many threats bearing down on tigers in any landscape, but you need to focus on the most important ones. We can't do everything, so take the ones that you get the biggest bang for your buck. Many times it's about law enforcement and stopping poachers. And so we focus on that very often in many places, but it's not always that case. You need to identify what the most important thing is threatening tigers at that time, in that place, and eliminate that threat first. Don't try to do everything, do the most important things and do them very well. Then you need to think about expanding, but only expand your efforts when in your initial core area, your source site, you have tiger numbers that are approaching carrying capacity and you have the resources available to expand. Don't go there if you don't have the resources. Don't lose what you already have, and only expand when you have the opportunity in both resources and that you have demonstrated success. So a classic example of this, we heard Job talk a couple nights ago about the situation in Thailand and the Western Forest Complex. And what the government did there, what Anak Pantanavibol did, who is a director of the WCS program there, did, and for me, he's a hero of tiger conservation, is really amazing. They did not try to cover the whole Western Forest Complex at once. They started with a set of 3 protected areas, but really focused on one. On the right side is Waikal National Park, and they started their law enforcement efforts, focusing at first just on the eastern side of that to secure that border. And then over time, they expanded their law enforcement efforts to make sure they're starting to halt poaching, primarily focused again in the eastern side, the Waikal region, to eliminate poaching there first. And what happened was that when they first started their surveys in around 2005 and 6 and 7, there were small numbers of tigers in this area, 17 tigers. But as they focused primarily in Waikal, numbers started to increase until they got up to over 60 tigers in 2021. Only in 2016, when they felt they'd had some level of success in Waikal, did they move over to the Tonyai East Reserve. In 2016, there were about the same number of tigers in 2007. But by this year, we see market recovery because they've started to focus their efforts of law enforcement there. More recently, they've just started in the Tongwai West side, yet even here, we've seen a beginning of recovery here. And so focus on an area, do really good work in that area, and then expand when you've demonstrated your success in those areas. This is what they did here, and this is a recipe for success. The fourth component of this recipe is you have to have connectivity. Not every place is ideal like WEFCOM, where protected areas are adjacent to each other. And so as you're focused on a secure area, you also need to make sure that you have connectivity to the next protected area or the next source site, wherever that is. If you lose your connectivity, you've lost the game. And so while you're focusing small, you still need to be thinking big and how to make sure connectivity is maintained. Classic example, Rompan in Malaysia. Here we have two parts of, as far as I know, the only place in Malaysia that has been able to maintain stable or perhaps slightly increasing numbers of tigers is in Rompan. And yet we risk losing them because that landscape has practically been severed in two. We can't lose that connectivity corridor. This area, both the Pahang and Johor, needs to be connected to the central spine. These are major priorities for saving this southernmost population of Malaysian tigers. And so connectivity here is a key issue to long-term survival. The fifth component of this recipe is monitoring. We're all indebted to the two people in this photograph, Ulas Karant in the back and Arjun Goswalapami, who together put together their magnificent ecological theoretician brains and statistical brain power to show us how to count tigers. And not only did they do this theoretically, but they went out in the field and demonstrated how to do it to us. And so all the camera track photos you've seen over the last week really attribute to these two men who showed us how to do this. But it's not just monitoring tigers. We need to monitor everything we do. That's what smart law enforcement is. It's about monitoring how we do law enforcement. And any kind of initiative we take on, mitigation activity we take on, whether it's community engagement or anything else, we need to be able to measure our successes and demonstrate successes and failures, because we learn most from our failures. And so we need to think about moving from source sites to tiger conservation landscapes, to these larger landscapes, and moving in that direction. Think small, acting small, but thinking globally. So we heard Kachan Thapa the other night talk about the Terai Arc in Nepal, and that Terai Arc system extends into India as well. And this is a great example of a country and a landscape and people in that landscape working very hard to connect these small populations into one large metapopulation to take source sites and create tiger conservation landscapes out of them. This is an example of how to do that kind of work. The other great example of this is in the Western Ghats of India, where people started back in the 1970s in one small protected area called Nagar Holi, which is number 18 on this map here. And over time, expanded conservation efforts to 25 different protected areas and the forested landscapes in between them. And now we have an interconnected population in the Western Ghats of somewhere around 500, 600 tigers, one of the largest populations of tigers in the world. A classic example of how you start small, expand, and eventually think about large tiger conservation landscapes. So I'm going to move over to Northeast Asia now and start to talk about the Siberian or the Amur tiger. When we first came to this region a long time ago, the area looked something like this. Tiger habitat exists wherever there's green on this map. And so in Russia, Primorsky Krai, Khabarovsky Krai, and the Jewish autonomous regions are the main places where there's tiger habitat. In China, we see lots of green space with potential tiger habitat. But if we look at where there is actual tigers, the majority of tigers are on the Russian side in the Sokotelin Mountains of Primorsky and Khabarovsky Krais, with a few places in China where there are a few tigers. And I'll come back to those Chinese tigers in a minute. Things were not always good for tigers in Russia, and we're not clear, it's not sure how good they are now. But if you're looking for hope in Malaysia, this graph should provide that to you. In the 1940s, there were an estimated 20 tigers in the Russian Far East. When Russians arrived in the Russian Far East, they took to hunting with absolute glee and shot most everything they came across, including tigers. And trophy hunting of tigers was a very popular sport. so popular that they nearly drove the population of tigers to extinction. And it's very likely that tigers recovered in Russia, partly due to movement of tigers across the border back to China. Now they're moving in the other direction. In 1947, Russia banned legal hunting of tigers. They also banned or reduced the capture of cubs, and Russia was supplying huge numbers of tiger cubs to the world zoos at this time. They stopped that, they greatly reduced that practice as well. And over a very long time period, about 45 years, that population recovered to about 500 individuals, which is about where it is today. We don't really know exactly where that population is today. It may have declined a little bit from a peak in the late 80s and early 90s. We know the population declined in the 1990s when the Soviet Union collapsed and a lot of the protection components collapsed. But it stabilized after that and is probably relatively stable at this time. And so this takes time. It does not happen in a year or two. You need to have long-term commitments to conservation. But if you stick to it, if you do the right things, recovery of tiger populations is very, very possible. Okay, so I'm not going to go through everything about how we do tiger conservation in Northeast Asia, but I want to hit on a couple of really important points and echo what I've already said previous to this. When we started out, we knew very little about tiger ecology in Northeast Asia, and so we started a research program to understand that ecology as a foundation for how we do conservation. And what we found out was a bit surprising for us. If we compared how much area one tigress needs in India versus Russia, there's a 20-fold difference. In India, tigers have home ranges, females have home ranges of around 20 square kilometers. In Russia, about 400 square kilometers. And if you convert that into how much you need for a population, say of 100 tigresses, in India, you can get away with a relatively small area, 2,000 square kilometers, whereas in Russia, you need 40,000 square kilometers. And so if you heard Raghu Chandwa talk yesterday about tiger conservation in India, he repeatedly mentioned the fact that tiger conservation is done in individual parks for the most part. And they can get away with that in India because home range sizes are so small. But there aren't parks large enough anywhere in the world to hold a viable population of tigers in a landscape like Russia. The difference is due to the density of the prey. In a northern forested complex like Russia that is not as productive as India, there are not as many prey per square kilometer, and therefore tigers need to range much wider to secure sufficient prey. They need larger home ranges, and hence tiger densities are much lower. Hence, we need more space for tigers. And so when we think about our approach to tiger conservation, yes, we need to focus on protected areas because they represent source populations, but we have to work outside of protected areas because that's where the majority of tiger habitat is in Russia. And so while there are many places across Russia that are acting as source sites and we're working to increase effectiveness of law enforcement, those represent a small proportion of the landscape where tigers occur, and we need to work outside those protected areas because we know from our research that the majority of tigers in Russia and Northeast Asia in general die at the hands of humans, die at the hands of poachers. And so stopping poaching, which occurs mostly outside of protected areas, is one of the most important things we do. And so some of the things, we do many different things, and I can't go through all of them, but some of the things we do is try to reduce access to illegal hunting. And this is one of the very typical ways in which people illegally hunt in Russia is they get in cars and drive down logging roads with lights at night and light up the eyes of both ungulates and tigers and then shoot them. And you see the guy with a light in the back and a gun and an arm ready to go. And so we are working with logging companies to actually close roads down. Logging companies like it because people aren't illegally logging in their areas. And we like it because it keeps poachers out of these areas. But there's legal hunting in Russia as well, not of tigers, but of the prey. And so we need to find a common ground with hunters. And so we've done extensive work working with hunters, even bringing them over to the US to compare ungulate management and carnivore management in Russia versus North America, and trying to devise better management strategies to find common grounds with tiger conservation and hunters. And there are common interests. Both are interested in high populations of prey of ungulate species. And so we have things we have in common that we can work together in. So as Raghu mentioned yesterday, working with local communities is very important. And this is the most important part of the local community that we deal with. So if we think about where tigers can expand in Northeast Asia, and you remember the map I showed you just recently, it's very clear that there's a lot of potential habitat in China. And this area that's called the Jewish Autonomous Region that you see on this map is also an area that didn't have tigers for the last 50 years or so, but had the potential for tigers to recover. And in fact, what happened over the last 10 years is that people have used the fact that many females that have cubs are more susceptible to getting poached than other individuals. And it's not uncommon to find tiger cubs on their own wandering into towns. And so instead of sending those animals off to zoos, rehabilitation center was created. And these animals were captured, as in this situation, and moved, sometimes needing veterinarian care. This particular tiger cub, whose name is Cinderella or Zolishka, had to have her tail amputated because it was frostbitten while she had lost contact with her mother. And these animals have been brought to this rehabilitation center, kept from humans, so there's no contact with humans, and provided live prey so they learned how to hunt in this relatively small area, but sufficient for them to learn how to hunt native natural prey. And when they would naturally disperse from their mother's natal home range, they're taken out into the Jewish Autonomous Region and released. And so this is a picture of that same tiger cub that had her tail amputated. You can see it is short in the wild in Bostock Reserve in the Jewish Autonomous Region in 2014. On her own, successfully hunting wild prey, being a successful tiger in the wild. Many tigers have been released in this area. Some of them have traveled into China and come back. The yellow line represents the border between Russia and China. Some have stayed in Russia, but we have a healthy population in this region where 40 years ago, there was no tiger population at all, using this process of rehabilitation and release of individuals. This is a picture of that same tigress, Cinderella, with a short tail you see again, with two cubs that she successfully raised in the wild. Again, she was born in the wild, brought into captivity, was taught how to hunt, released back into the wild, and is now surviving out there. This is a recipe we can use anywhere we've lost tigers to recover tiger populations anywhere in Asia. It needs to be done carefully, but there's demonstrations of how to do it correctly. In another part of China, down to the south, the very southernmost part of Russia, a very successful national park called Land of Leopard National Park has increasing tiger populations, and that population is overflowing across the border into China. And that process has been so successful that China has created a national park. In fact, one of the largest national parks for tigers in the world is called the Northeast Tiger Leopard National Park in Northeast China. And this picture was taken from that new national park. Individual female tigers are now living solely within this area and successfully raising cubs. And so again, we have another example of a natural dispersal occurring with tigers moving into China and inhabiting new available habitat. So across this large landscape, we have tigers moving north and south in Russia between Pomorsky and Khabarovsky Krai. We have tigers moving across the Sino-Russian border from the Jewish Autonomous Region and down to the south from southwest Primorye into the Shanghai-Shan region of China. We have all these animals moving around, and it's our hope, our vision for the future, that this will eventually become one giant metapopulation of tigers moving back and forth across these international boundaries. And so if you look at this, at least in my perspective, to me it looks a little bit, there's a middle section where there's no tiger habitat as wetlands, and it looks a little bit to me like a donut. And so when I think about recovery of tigers in Northeast Asia, I'm dreaming of donuts. That's my image of recovery. Okay, so just to summarize, I've come to the end of my talk, but I want to say a couple of things about what Singapore can do for tiger conservation. Okay, I would suggest for the country, for the government as a whole, to consider trying to join the Global Tiger Initiative. They are a former range of tigers. There's no reason why they could not participate in tiger recovery efforts across Asia. That would be a great signal of their interest in conservation. Secondly, Singaporeans and the government and the corporations and companies that work and live in Singapore could contribute to a financial platform to support tiger conservation. Again, another demonstration of the commitment to tiger conservation. Even though tigers are gone from Singapore, Singapore can still help conserve tigers. Thirdly, I think, and we've already heard, had at least one presentation about what is being done in Singapore now to stop illegal trade of tiger parts. But we continue to work with other countries in Asia to stop the illegal trade, because illegal trade is international, and we need to work beyond national borders to stop this illegal trade. And finally, something that I haven't heard in any presentations yet today, and maybe I missed it, but there's a need to eliminate the demand for tiger products. We know that poaching and illegal tiger trade is all driven by people's desire for tiger products rather than live tigers. And we know when the questions for tiger parts stop, the killing will stop. And so this is an area that has not gotten enough attention, but it's a place where Singaporeans could help stop the demand for tiger parts, at least within their country, and demonstrate to others how it can be done. Okay, my final message to SWAG. I'm very happy that you guys exist. I think you're an inspiration of what is possible. And it reminds me of Margaret Mead's statement, a relatively famous American anthropologist some 40 years ago, said that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dale, and you kept so well to time. Moreover, you gave us all the essentials of tiger conservation in point form for us to remember, and pointers for Singapore and SWAG for tiger conservation. So you have our job lined up for us for the next 10 years. Anyway, thank you so much. And we are so glad that you are still here and not sort of like, you know, somewhere else, like we can still see you and hear you. So thank you very much for that. And we hope you're still around when we do the question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we go to Grigory Mazmaniants. Yes, okay. Grigory is the director of WWF's Central Asian program. So here we have, you know, an area that we also, at least I don't know so much about, all right? So Russian Far East to now Central Asia. Grigory has over 25 years of experience in biodiversity conservation, and he leads a very unique and ambitious project of reintroducing the Amur tiger or Siberian tiger back to the Republic of Kazakhstan, where it has gone extinct. So we hope that we don't get, you know, I mean, in Singapore it's extinct, but we hope that in our neighbors it wouldn't be extinct. But if it does get extinct, Grigory has some insight for us. So Grigory will shed light on the process of reintroduction of this apex predator, which had gone extinct in Kazakhstan. Grigory, please.
Okay, great. 1 second, I will start my presentation. Is it okay?
Yes, yes, it's
Great.
perfect. Thank
Great.
you.
It's a little bit difficult to speak after Dale, because Dale speak more about whole tiger conservation, and I will concentrate on the concrete activities in Kazakhstan Republic and Central Asia. But I hope you enjoy. Let's start from the small video spot.
This is the Amur Tiger, the largest big cat in the world and ruler of the snow-prone areas of the Far East. And this is the Caspian Tiger, now extinct, lived in Central Asia but disappeared about 70 years ago, dead and gone. But there is hope. Recent research revealed that the Amur and Caspian tigers were close relatives. They're almost identical in their genetic structure. Also, there is a suitable area in Kazakhstan to bring the tiger back to its home. That led to an exciting cooperation between the government of Kazakhstan and WWF, unique to nature conservation, the first large-scale tiger reintroduction ever in the Ili-Balkhash region of Kazakhstan. This is where the Caspian tiger used to roam, the Tugai woodlands and reed thickets of Central Asia. And here is Kazakhstan. The government of the Republic of Kazakhstan strongly supports this program and takes the first step to create a new Ili-Balkhash nature reserve. The region also needs protection against poaching, and WWF will reintroduce deer and wild boar to ensure sufficient prey base for the newcomer. When the region is completely restored and the amount of the prey species increases to 20 to 25 animals per hectare, WWF will release the first tigers. The first step in recreating a tiger population that was completely wiped out in the past, and an important step for WWF's global initiative to double the number of tigers worldwide.
Well, there are some mistakes in this video spot because we speak about density for 1,000 hectares, and the global initiative, it's not only WWF one. WWF is one of the organization, but let's speak about history of this reintroduction program. It started at the beginning of 20s. All history ranges of tigers was checked by special expeditions, and we recognize that there are only 3 places in the Central Asia where we can speak about reintroduction. And one of them, it's very small. If you remember Dale's presentation, when we speak about 100,000 hectares, it's too small for any reintroduction program for the tigers, at least in the climate, which is more or less similar as Russian Far East. The second was too young, near the historical Aral Sea. And the third one was there, it's Ili-Balkhash south coast and Ili delta of Ili River. This is a unique place without serious involvement or serious how to say, anthropogenic activities in this area during the last 100 years. And this was chosen as a place for the potential tiger reintroduction. This is the area and mass model what can be the maximum population of the wild tigers there. So we speak about delta of Erie River, can be even up to 90 tigers, up to 22, 23 tigers can be on the south coast of the Balkhash Lake. And in another place, it's also protected area, 23, 25 tigers there. Of course, it depends on the density of prey. The density of prey in the Central Asia historical was higher than in Russian Far East, but much lower anyway than in India. Kinetic research demonstrates that Caspian Tiger is more or less identical with Amur Tiger. The difference, it's near the normal difference for the two different population, which was not connected for 100 or 200 years. And in 2010, Kazakhstan government announced that they're ready to return tigers there. And in 2017, the program was developed and it was signed a memorandum between WWF International and the Kazakhstan government. We have 4 stages of the program. First stage is restore ecosystem, reintroduction of Bukhara deer, increase amount of ungulates, including wild boars, roe deers, goiter-red gazelles, kulans, and plus minus saiga. In between 2025 and 2030, we plan to bring tigers from the Russian Far East and release them there. And 2030-2034, we will monitor development of the program there. And then we expect, if nothing happens, there are a lot of risks. I will tell about them later. But in some future, we can expect up to 100 tigers there. What was done already during the first stage? The State Nature Reserve El Balkhash was created by Kazakhstan government. It's around 415,000 hectares. And this is this area, the borders, red borders, you see, it's a El Balkhash Nature Reserve. Also, here we have 2 big sanctuaries. Green one is Pribalkhashsky and pink one is Karoysky, with a total area around 600,000 hectares. So we speak more than 1 million hectares of protected areas plus ecological corridor for the goiter-red gazelles and kulans for their migration. And it's also around 1 million hectares. So whole area of the program, it's around 2 million hectares. Then, with help of WWF and the Kazakhstan government, we start to work with this new protected area to help them, to provide technical support, to start modern technologies like smart patrolling software. We control by satellite fires there. We provide a lot of cordons, ranger centers, motorcycles, snow motorcycles, what else? New cars and pilotless aircraft. like you see here. It's not drone, it's a more or less big aircraft with long distance of flying. Here you see green flags. It's places of our ranger centers for cordons, and green deer. It's a place where we started reintroduction of Bukhara deers in this area. Bukhara deer. What was done already? The level of ungulates increased from 5 to 12 during the last 3 years. And we expect that in 2025, we will have around 30-35 ungulates per 1,000 hectare in the area of the future tiger release. And it's much less than in India, as I said. In India, you can see even 80 ungulates per 1,000 hectare. But 30, 35, 40, it's enough level for the Siberian tiger, or the Amur tiger. We have around 100 Bukhara deers already, Bukhara deer in the area. If we look to the historical scientist research, 65% of the tiger's prey in this area comes from the wild boars and roe deers, mostly wild boars. 25% from the Bukhara deer, and all other from goiter-red gazelles, saiga antelope, and kulans. This year, we expect that we will start kulans for introduction program. Goiter-red gazelles we have here, and we have a lot of wild boars as well as roe deers. Here you see some pictures of our censuses. It's the last census in controlling area for census during the last winter. And here it's a very high level of density on this control territory. It's more than 37 individuals per 1,000 for 1,000 hectares. All our released deer, not all, but each 5 of them are equipped by satellite collars, and we control their migration, their winter feeding places. And of course, each winter we provide winter feeding. This year we expect around 100 tons of the corn, which will be distributed in the area for the wild boars, 40 tons of other food for the deers, and hay as well. It's very important to have support from the local communities, and we are working very hard with the local communities to explain them how to live with tiger, what does it mean tiger for them, how it helps to communities develop. We are working with children, provide special lessons, provide some celebrations, events, other stories. We have 11 TV movies in Kazakhstan. During these 3 years, we have already 11 movies about tiger introduction, goiter-red gazelles, wild boars, or protect areas, and so on. All these movies, it's around 1.5 hours. in 5 languages: Kazakh, Russian, English, Uzbek, and Tajik. One of very important part of our work is to stop firing in the area, because firing it's a real problem, and unfortunately locals use it each year for renovate the grass, for protect their houses or their cattle against firing, which will be produced by neighbors. And this year, for example, we have very bad situation with fires, and we try to explain locals that it's a bad practice and they have to stop it. For the moment, we have at least 30% of the locals who support our efforts to stop fires in the area. I hope that before 2025, we will have more than 50%. Unfortunately, last 2 years, there are some clear problems with meet people and collect them together because of the COVID-19 and lockdown regulations. At the middle of pandemic last year, we decided to support local hospital. And you see here, it's a photo when we present some new equipment to local hospital. And you see the level of this local hospital in the villages. 40% of home income of all locals comes from the poaching. Most of this poaching, it's a fishing poaching, but also they kill wild boars, they kill birds. All this area, it's part of the Ramsar Convention. So it's a wetland, and hunting is fully prohibited in this area. But unfortunately, our problem is that there is no working place for the locals. And we can't simply say them, please stop to poach. Because in this case, the next question from their side will be, what will we do with our children? We don't have a working place, we don't have any source of income. Most of them, they have some amount of cattle, house, but it's not enough to keep big families as it's normal for the Kazakhstan. We speak about each family, it's around 8-10 people. And therefore, WWF last 5 years, we started 4 years. We started special supporting programs. We provide small grants for them to create, to support any entrepreneurial activities. But of course, they have to be not connected with poaching, but it can be, I don't know, produce clothes, produce some food, agriculture programs, projects, sometimes even tire service in the village before they don't have. And here you have examples of our results of our small grant program and these activities. Also, we support families with growing vegetables. From 2020, we started this program, and we provide them seeds, we provide them watering systems, we help to prepare land, And for the moment, it's around 60 families in 2 villages receive such support. So we speak of around 600 people who received support from WWF. And we we try to explain them that we are ready to support in front, but we expect them that they will stop their poaching activities. Also this year we started a program. We bring new technology for this district, for this part of the Kazakhstan. In other parts of Kazakhstan, they use already many years drip irrigation system, but here people they still use historical open water channels for their agriculture, and we started to demonstrate that it can be changed, and the approach can be more effective when you use drip irrigation system. 18 hectares already installed by this system. Very big problem is for the future tiger reintroduction is what water in this area. First of all, because of the climate change, glaciers are melting, and you see here all glaciers which collect water in the Ili River. Ili River, it's around 70% of the fresh water which comes to the Balkhash Lake. Balkhash Lake is a unique lake. Half of the lake is normal water and half salt water. And problem is that as less water we received in the Balkhash Lake, as more risky we have a scenario with Aral Sea. You see here very, very short part of water in the middle of lake. It's in case it's a place where the water, the lake divided by fresh and salt part, salt from the right side, fresh from the left side. If the lake, the level of water will be less than 341 meters above sea level, then we have a risk, and the lake will be divided to 2 parts, and then we will have Aral Sea scenario there. Unfortunately, here we have a Kapchigai reservoir, which was constructed in 1972 or 78, between 72 and 78. It's one of the biggest reservoir in this area of Asia, and we have problems with management of this reservoir, as they still use rules which was created in 1979. And you see here on the left graph, red one, it's what have to be in the delta of Ili level with water, without reservoir, and blue one, what we have in reality after this hydroenergetic management. Another story is that because of this climate change and melting of glaciers, because activities of China in this area to develop their economy, the level of water decreased year to year, an amount of water which we received for the Balkhash Lake. In the China, we have already 7 new reservoirs with total secured water 5 billion cubic meters. As more water is kept for the hydroenergetic or agriculture, as less water we received in Balkhash Lake, and as more risky that we will not have water in the area. However, we are working with it, and I hope that this year we will start to change rules of this Kapchagai reservoir. And I hope that in some nearest future, Kazakhstan government, together with China government, can agreed amount of water, which have to be passed to the Kazakhstan part. What else? We provide reforestation in the area of our work, because we need forest. We need to repair forest was there many years ago and already destroyed because of the lack of the water and because of the fires. And we hope that in 2025 we will be ready to release first tigers. Just for your understanding why it's so important to work with local communities, why it's important to have there on board to decrease the level of poaching, I will show you one very beautiful thing, what we have in the area. Here you see memories of the poachers, and when you drive in the area, you find such places. Here you see a picture of the gun, real bullets. All poachers who pass near put bullets as a flowers, as memory. And on the other part, you see steps of the goitering gazelles. By the way, it's a red book. It's a red book according to IUCN and as well as Kazakhstan Republic. And it's a normal for locals, not only kill red book animals, but also put such memories in the area. That's all. I'm ready to answer any questions about the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Grigory, for that very informative talk on reintroduction, which is probably very foreign to all of us. And yes, there are some questions. So we now we'll take questions from everyone. Could you write your questions in the chat? And there are already questions in the chat, and I'll ask Carmen to start off first, asking the first question.
Vilma, I think Dale has lost internet connection. Yeah, I don't
he disappeared.
see him. If Dale, if you're there, please turn on your camera. But yeah, I don't see him there. So we can start by asking. Okay, tell you what. Let me turn on my camera, and we can start asking questions to Grigory. So let me get there. Let's see. There's a question. In one slide, you showed 3 areas where tigers would have local populations. So the question is, would these areas be connected?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. All these areas are connected. Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible.
Okay. Great. That's
I have a next question. How many wild tigers need to be present before you start moving? How many wild tigers need to be present there in the reintroduction site before you start moving more tigers there? And how many tigers are planned to move? And can one also bring captive bred tigers to be released, since tigers are, very endangered? What about captive bred Amur tigers? So that's a question.
Well, if we look to the program, by the way, you can find a program in all languages on the wwf.ru site. We speak about 10 tigers, from 10, 20 tigers, depends on the situation, from the Russian Far East. And these tigers have to create new population. In reality, I think that no one will let us bring more than 10 wild tigers. We discussed deeply possibility to use tigers to create, how to say, reintroduction center to bring tigers from zoos and then provide education of cubs in this center. But unfortunately, with tiger, it's too risky because it's a very serious predator, and I wouldn't say that such idea it's good for the area, at least where we have villages, where we have people there. At the same time, normally when we look to the reintroduction programs, which Dale mentioned in his presentation, reintroduction programs in Russia, we have two programs in the Russian Far East, and one is in Amur region, and second Jewish region. It's two regions of Russia where tigers extinct. And what happens now? Let's say simple conflict tigers. What does mean conflict? Conflict it not means that he attacked humans. They attacked, for example, dogs in the village. After the several attack, such a tiger have to be caged, bring to the special center, but then together with a satellite collar, we release this tiger in another area. So in Russia, last 10 years, there was a program where these tigers are released in new region. And these tigers demonstrate that they are very, in case they have enough prey, they don't need to go to village, they don't need to go to eat dogs or I don't know, cows. And these tigers started to create new populations in these two regions where tigers exist. I think we will have more or less the same here in Kazakhstan. So we will use wild tigers, but most of them will come through these small conflict stories. Serious conflict in case of tiger has attacked a human, it doesn't matter why. In 99% cases, it's a result of human behavior. But in case that a tiger attacks, in this case, tiger will come to zoo. He will never let live in the wild nature. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Carmen, another question?
Yep. Thank you. Okay. This person says the reintroduction program seems amazing, but what is the strategic plan for the prevention and mitigation of disease outbreaks related to the reintroduction of both prey species and tigers, and for example, tuberculosis and canine distemper spread being between, being brought to the tigers and
Well, according to the international standards, IUCN standards, we can't speak about reintroduction and releasing tigers without previous serious veterinarian research. We started this program this year and expect that during 2 years we will finish this work. What does it mean? We collect blood from all predators in the area of future tiger release. We have already, of course, from the Russian Far East, all information about potential disease of tigers in the Russian Far East. We check it. We try to identify risks for tigers in new area, as well as a risk for the animals there from the tiger. And for the moment, our previous small general research demonstrates that there are not so many risks. But anyway, we have to finish this work. By the way, now we have a good new reintroduction program of the Far Eastern Leopard in Lazovsky reserve, and this work was done by WCS for the Far Eastern Leopard. So the same group, more or less the same group of people now are working with our Kazakhstan part and to identify all risks for them. As far as we know now, we don't have such risks, but who knows?
Okay, thank you. And Vilma, next question.
Yes, I have another question. What an ambitious project. Great to know the years of preparation going in before releasing tigers. Would it be 15 years? I'm curious, how much is the whole budget for something like this? All secured or fundraising ongoing? The government is paying for this? That's the question. So budget and the amount of years of preparation, how much resources are going into this?
Well, as I said, we have several stages of program. First stage will be finished in 2024. When we speak about first two stages, we identified our efforts, I mean WWF's budget to invest around 10 million euro, and around 10 million euro we expect from the Kazakhstan government. For the moment, all these obligations are near to be there. By the way, there are another question, as far as I see, that what is better, to spend so many efforts for new area in spite of invest money to the already current ranges. You should understand that unfortunately we do not have more space for the current populations. We don't have more space for the tigers. When we speak about, for example, India, for the moment we have near the maximum amount of tigers in the India. When we speak about Russia, it's more or less the same. Without new two regions, which I mentioned, Amur region and Jewish region, we do not have more space to increase populations of the current wild tigers in these areas. So in future, when we speak about new tigers in the world, when we speak about safe and double total population of tigers, we have to look to new areas. It's one point. And second point, we do not speak about fully new. We speak about reintroduction. We speak about the areas where tigers live for many, many years. Moreover, the population in Central Asia was much bigger than Russian population, for example. Unfortunately, all of them are killed. They are killed because they were recognized by the people, by the government, by the society as a bad predator, as well as, for example, now in many countries, including, for example, Central Asia and Russia, wolves are recognized as a bad predator. and the position of where such predators have to be killed, because we need cows, we need sheep, goats, and we don't need any animals who can kill this domestic cattle.
Yeah. Is it my turn now? Yes. Yeah, I have a question. So you spoke about the extinction of the Caspian tiger. What were the main lessons learned from losing the Caspian tigers, and how does the current reintroduction efforts address any of these lessons learned?
Well, again, world is changed. For the moment, we do not speak about tigers as a bad predator. When we look to the all the world, we are not to recognize any animals that we don't speak about killing them because of our, I don't know, agricultural activities or cattle, something. Yes, of course, we still have some problems with wolves in some countries, but in some countries they are near to be red book, and hunting is fully prohibited. So we do not speak about when we speak about main lesson. Main lesson is that it's not necessary to kill animals because they are part of the pyramid. They are part of fooding pyramid, ecological pyramid, and the situation dramatically changed. And I wouldn't say that there are any special lessons, yeah, because, for example, in 19th century, it was a army operations, army borders to kill tigers. So hundreds of militaries comes to the forest and kill all tigers in this forest. And believe me, now it's not possible. I don't speak about special countries in special situation or revolutions, but normally it's not possible. No one will think this way. So lessons are learned more or less.
Yeah.
It's one point, and second point, look to this unique initiative, which was signed by all Tiger Range countries in 2010 during the Tiger Summit in St. Petersburg, when all countries signed to double population of wild tigers in their countries. Yes, of course, and not in all countries it happens, not in, unfortunately, moreover, 2-3 countries we already lost the tigers during these 12 years, but in other countries it happens. And when we look about India, in Nepal, the amount of tigers more double. And when we look Russia, for example, the amount of tigers increased. So, as I said, the world has changed. Lessons are learned.
Yes. Yes, exactly, Gregory. Similarly, in Singapore, our last tiger was killed in 1930. And in the 1800s, there were tigers. And it was during that time that agriculture and human settlement was expanding, and forests were cut. And yes, there were rewards if people shot a tiger. And so in 1930, the last tiger was killed. So the same thing in a way. So, I mean, yeah, historically, that was what was happening during that time. And yeah, glad to know now that, that's, yeah, it's against the law to do that. Yeah. Carmen, are there any questions? Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, there are two more that I can see, but the first one actually is that you mentioned the funding. You know, it's obviously it takes a lot of commitment and funding. So the question is, what do you think is the motivation for the Kazakh government to be behind this reintroduction program? Because they devoted so much resources to it.
Well, when we look to the Kazakhstan government, ecological activities, there are a lot of efforts which are paid to create new protected areas, to protect animals and other projects and activities. At the same time, when we speak about this concrete territory, there are additional arguments why. One is when we speak about taiga, it's top of the pyramid. And to have taiga, you have to restore and you have to conserve all the area. And it's the only case, and it is only condition when you can return taiga back. So for the Kazakhstan government to taiga introduction, it's not only taiga, it's conserve all the ecosystem, all the area of the delta of the river and south coast of the Balkhash Lake. It's one point. Second point, it's more political point. When we speak about, as I mentioned, this story with water, it's not so simple because in many countries, when we have trans-border rivers, the water depends on the country which is higher. In our case, we speak about China. China is not part of the UNECE convention. They participate, but they not sign the convention of the transboundary rivers. And for the China economic development of this region, it's more important that caring about Kazakhstan part and especially Balkhash Lake. Taiga, it's one of the potential flagship as a brand who will support efforts of Kazakhstan to secure water to their part. It's another reason.
I see. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. There is one more question that came in. Vilma, would you like to ask it?
Similar to something that you were addressing, this person says it looks like Kazakhstan is looking to rebuild some sort of national park in an area which has been ecologically ruined. It is something that should be repeated in a lot of different countries, especially as urbanization moves people out of the country. What did you see you needed to do to get the forests back in order? Did the botany community in Kazakhstan step up or step in to work with you on it? So Forrest, how did you bring?
Okay. Yeah. First of all what I mentioned, it's not how to say WWF personal activity. We just support Kazakhstan government to provide it. Of course, we involved institutes, Institute of Forest Institute of the, when we speak about water, for example, Institute of Geography and Water Security. We do not speak, we are working with Institute of Zoology and so on. So what we are doing, we support efforts of these organizations, as well as government, as well as reserve as a government structure. It's not WWF structure, yeah, it's a government structure. And this reserve was created by government, and government employee, government staff, around near a little bit less than 100 employees in the reserve. And what we are doing, we buy something, we pay for the research, we pay for the seedlings, we pay for the planting, and all such activities. Part of this money comes from the government budget. Part of this money comes from the WWF donors. For the moment, the program is supported by WWF Netherlands and two private funds in Netherlands, Farthest Foundation and Contribute Foundation. It's a private family fund. And another several donors like, I don't know, Kinder, New World Foundation, all other, as well as local NGOs who also collect money. UNDP is working now, big program, UNDP together with Kazakhstan government. They collect money. It's a system of UNDP working. Part of money comes from the government budget and part from another sources of UNDP. And we speak about $3 million for the next 5 years, which will be invested in the tiger reintroduction program from this part.
Yeah, it's a very, very ambitious project and very special project. And we really hope that, it would be successful. Shall I ask the last question, Carmen, or is there other questions?
I don't see another question, and I don't see Dale joining us. But we do have a little bit of time. If anyone in the audience who wishes to ask a question, please raise your hand, and you can turn on your unmute yourself, and you can go ahead and ask. And if not, then I think we can end a little bit early tonight. So, anyone with a question?
I just see something from, I don't know whether it was there earlier, but I see a comment from Dr. Kai Kawanishi. She says, if the government is committed to the 30-year plan for something that has never been done before, that's great. Glad to know that WWF is helping them. Oops, I've lost that now. Yeah. Yes, the Kazakh government, can't save any more tigers, so why not go forth? So she's saying that it's really great that, WWF is helping in this project. It was a comment.
Yeah, actually, there are quite a few comments that came in, and Debbie, who very graciously helped us answer a question yesterday, also made a comment about the capacity of forests, the holding capacity for tigers. And
well, it's a long story discussion. I agree with the author of the comment. But our position that in many places the capacity of the forest is already reached maximum.
Yeah, that's right, because this is what Debbie is saying. It'd be it's a long conversation, and she also makes a comment that it would be helpful for scientists to iron out the different opinions over national capacity and to avoid conflicting messages. So yeah, I think this is what we hope to do. Organizing the Singapore Tiger Week is to gather people like yourself, tiger researchers and people, conservationists, to come together and have this discussion. And in fact, tomorrow is the last day, and we are now gathering all the comments, from the audience, from our speakers, and we will be presenting a summary statement tomorrow. So it's keep the questions coming, keep the comments coming, and let's see. There is one more question that popped up. do you see the fact that this is, okay, I think that the person is talking about the reforestation, right? The fact that this is rewilding and rewinding and an increase to biodiversity, do you see that this could be a carbon capture project in the future?
Oh, well, I would say at the beginning of our plans of reforestation in this area, we try to calculate mitigation of future forest reforestation. And we even have already, we developed a CO2 calculator of our reforestation efforts. Now can be calculated how many mitigation of CO2. But of course, we are thinking about this in our projects and activities. Normal. As well as, for example, WWF always for their efforts for all of us, WWF staff, we calculate our carbon footprint, and we know we decrease levels of our, I don't know, travel, aircrafts, and all such activities. You know, we are part of the world, and we are ecological organization.
There is another question. Are there any issues regarding the genetic health of the tiger population?
At least when we're speaking about Indian tigers as well as the Russian forest tigers, there is no any signals about bad genetic or very serious problems of inbreeding, for example. At the same time, when we look to the international cat group, we have in IUCN we have a special book of all relatives of tigers in zoos in the wild when we are able to identify them, and of course it influences also to future release.
Thank you, Gregory. It looks like Dale has.
Dale is here.
So Gregory
now I can pass.
Gregory had to answer so many questions, Dale. But Dale's frozen. Is Dale frozen?
I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Very good. Yeah, that's great. And I also saw Dr. Raghu. So we have more people, and poor Gregory has been answering all the millions of questions.
I'm sorry. The generator in the village where I live just got turned off for about 40. There's no electricity. Sorry.
I think this is the reality of many obviously, you know, biologists, conservationists working out in the field in remote areas. So we understand.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So we do, like Vilma said, Gregory has been answering a lot of questions that were presented to him, but I think there are a few.
Thank you, Gregory,
for
covering.
So let's get to a few of those that are for you, Dale. There's one that says, under the statement of urbanization is good for conservation. This person says, I understand it's due to the migration from rural to urban areas, correct? And then, however, how this assumption deals with the increasing demand of natural resources by urbanized areas, such as oil palm, coconut, timber, etc. How do these factors affect what you're saying, that development could be good?
I'm sorry, I lost you there for a minute. The question was about development?
Yes, so you mentioned that development could be good for conservation, yeah. And you're saying that this is due to the population migrating from rural areas to urban areas, correct?
Yes.
But then
yes.
at the same time, how do you deal with the increased demand of natural resources by urban area? You know, how do you make that balance?
Yeah, so obviously there's a balance here, and the fact that people are leaving rural areas to go to urban areas doesn't automatically mean that there will be more space available. But in general, I think that's the case. And when we look at countries around the world that are undergoing urbanization, there is more space available. It doesn't mean that, for instance, in Malaysia, all that space might get converted to oil plantations.
Oh, has Dale gone again? Oh no.
I believe we've lost Dale again.
Hello. Hello, the Russian Far East.
Yeah, I think Dale has just lost connection again.
Yeah. Well, whilst we wait for Dale to come back, there is a question from Debbie Banks. And she says, if Raghu is back, Dr. Raghu, are you here? I saw you coming back. Perhaps he could answer the question as to whether or not India has reached carrying capacity for tigers, or how many tigers could India potentially have? Is Dr. Raghu here?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Very good.
Yeah, no, I did during my presentation yesterday, mention a bit about the perceptions being generated with numbers, because we use these numbers to generate perception. And one of the perception I was talking about, that we have reached the capacity. India doesn't have a space for tigers, and there is we have achieved our targets. So these are some of the perceptions which has been done. But if you look at 50 tiger reserves in India, are they full? There are many tiger reserves where we have less than 10 tigers. And there are some where there are none at all. So, and if you look at other protected areas where other wildlife sanctuaries and national parks, which are not tiger reserves but are protecting tiger habitat, what's the condition? Are they full of tigers? No. So I don't think India have reached the full capacity. It can easily double. It can easily add another 1,500 to 2,000 tigers within its protected areas. And then outside the protected areas where I was talking, where are still good habitats, and we need to work, because we have to protect our tiger reserve populations. We need to protect those tiger habitats. If you include that, then we're talking about 5,000 to 6,000 or maybe more tigers we can have in India. So a quick answer to that question is no, India has not reached the capacity. There is still plenty to do, and we can very easily in near future, if we work properly, we can have 6,000 tigers.
Thank you, Dr. Raghu.
Dale is back. I can see Dale is back with us, but I don't know how well the connection is. Dale, are you there?
You can try. You can try.
Okay, Dale is back. Yeah. So any other?
Isn't there a question from Kai for Dale?
Oh yes, Kai has a question. Dr. Kai, would you like to turn on your
Yeah, I better ask. Am I there?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
I better ask really quick before Dale disappears. So Dale, my second question was actually about the genetic fitness, reduction in the genetic fitness due to the severe bottleneck the Siberian tigers went through, which was 20, right? But Grigory kind of answered it. So that's, I'm gonna skip that. So my first question, Dale, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I haven't lost you yet. Okay, all right. So you talked about not enough resources, and then we have to prioritize, and then so talking about the bottleneck, as Malayan tiger is probably going through this bottleneck right now to the next decade, 5 years to 10 years or so, right? Okay, what do you think about this idea? So no one wants to lose tigers in our lifetime as an extinct, and extinction can mean different things to different people, and for most members of public, like ecological extinction, functional extinction doesn't really make much sense. So as long as there's one tiger alive left in the wild, technically it is not extinct, right? So what do you think about this idea of releasing tiger, like one tiger, and track it, and it dies, or it comes out and get caught, and then you release it another one, and you keep doing that? Then technically tiger is not lost, right? In my lifetime.
That's more of a philosophical question than a biological question. You're not doing that. You're not recovering tigers. You're just playing a game with words and extinction and what extinction means. I would not recommend that as a strategy. The strategy is, how do you recover tigers and have a functional population, a functional and viable population? That's how we define success and recovery of any species that's endangered. And so let's not get to that point where we're talking about one tiger. Let's stop that process earlier and talk about how we focus on areas where there still are tigers. How do we ensure those tigers don't disappear? That's where all the focus has to be right now. Let's not talk about a one tiger scenario. That's a dismal scenario. And you're basically talking about Kazakhstan, what their situation is now and what they're doing. When you lose tigers from a landscape, it's very hard to bring them back. It's not just about ensuring the prey is there. The people very quickly become accustomed to the absence of tigers. And bringing tigers back to a landscape is much more difficult than keeping them there. And so it's very important in Malaysia that you don't get to that point. Grigory went through a lot of discussion of how they're trying to win the hearts and minds of the local communities. But when those tigers are released there, it's going to be a difficult situation. Those people aren't used to dealing with what's going to happen. And there are going to be new problems there. So let's not go there for Malaysia. Let's make sure that tigers are part of the cultural mindset and a part of the life of people living in tiger landscapes.
Well said. Thank you, Dale.
Thank you, Dale. Dr. Kai, there's a question actually for you that just came in. What is the carrying capacity of tigers in Malaysia for each of the current tiger habitats? This is from a Malaysian.
Oh, that's a wonderful question. You should save that question to tomorrow.
I think this person will come tomorrow as well.
On National Tiger number. Yeah, so tomorrow, Director General of Wildlife Department, Malaysia's Wildlife Department, is going to speak about, what am I promoting for? Yeah, but I'm just gonna go ahead. Speak about the drastic actions that the Malaysian government has been taking recently and is going to take, and how much effort and money that is gonna pour in the next 5 years. So stay tuned. And you can ask that question tomorrow.
Thank you, Dr. Kai.
Yeah, Vilma, I think, again, it's 8 o'clock. I think.
Yeah, I better ask that question, right?
Yeah, so really
Okay.
glad that, we got to squeeze in a question for Dale, but please go ahead and ask that last question.
Yeah, since Dale is here. So this question is for Grigory and Dale. And it's our last question. So if you had one wish, and that one wish was granted tomorrow for tigers, what would that wish be? Anybody can go, either Dale or Grigory.
Grigory, do you want to go first?
Dale, as you want.
Okay. My wish would be that when we woke up tomorrow, nobody wanted to buy tiger products. I think that is the key to not only tiger conservation, but big cat conservation globally. If we eliminate the demand for tiger products, that is the major factor that would help recover tiger, lion, jaguar, leopard, snow leopard products, snow leopard populations. And so that's my wish.
Thank you, Dale, and may your wish come true. We'll work hard on that. Gregory, your wish?
Well, when we speak about total wild tiger population, I should say that I support the wish of Dale. I agree that it's a main factor who influence for the moment. At the same time, probably let's add to not destroy the areas, not cutting trees. I don't speak about, I don't know, hunting angulators. Okay, we can protect them. But when the area is fully destroyed, when we do not have forest, when we do not have places for live, even without this demand of bones or skins, we will not have place for tigers to live. So if we stop to cut trees in the areas of tigers, I think we have a chance to have them for our future children.
Thank you, Gregory. And your wish is for the forest to remain, to be safe. And we wish that your wish comes true as well. Thank you. Back to you, Carmen.
Yes, thank you, Vilma. Yeah, I hope all your wishes come true. Those are our wishes as well. And thank you very much for spending time with us this evening. And thank you, Dale, for your keep trying to reconnect with us, even after you've been dropped off. We really appreciate all the effort. And of course, we appreciate both of your devotion, the dedication that you guys put into tiger conservation. Thank you. And of course, I want to thank our audience. I hope everybody, on this 5th day of our Singapore Tiger Week, that you have once again been inspired to do something for tigers. And like Dale said in his presentation, tiger conservation is constantly underfunded. So one way you can help is to donate to tiger conservation organizations. And to that end, and this was actually encouraged by Dale. He encouraged us to go ahead and create a fundraiser that is tied to Singapore Tiger Week. So here we are. We invite all of you to attend Singapore Tiger Week for free, but if you want to make a small contribution, we would love to have you go to this global giving page and make a donation. And any contribution directly supports the work of Dr. Kai, who is with the Wildlife Society of Selangor and Miquelle. Or if you prefer to support SWAG locally in Singapore, you can always go to our web store and buy our SWAG. 100% of our proceeds go to programs that support wildcat conservation, including the Love Our Leopard Cat campaign in Singapore, and of course, anything at the projects that support the conservation of the Malayan tiger. And that's my spiel. So Vilma, I'm back to you for anything else to add.
Thank you very much, Carmen. Just one more slide, which Daphne will put on, which is tomorrow's program. Tomorrow's the last day of Singapore Tiger Week. And our theme for tomorrow is Tiger Conservation, Challenges, Opportunities, and Innovative Solutions. And we have 4 speakers. We will have Dato' Abdul Qadir bin Abu Hashim. He is the Director General of the Department of Wildlife and National Parks, Malaysia. And we're very happy that he will be talking about urgent actions for the Malayan tiger. Our dear friend from National Parks, Dr. Adrian Liu, will be talking about Singapore's efforts in combating the illegal wildlife trade. Elizabeth John will talk about illegal wildlife trade in Southeast Asia and what traffic is doing to stem the trade. And Jenny Roberts from WWF Tigers Alive Initiative will round off the evening with a vision for tiger recovery beyond next year's Year of the Tiger. And right at the end, our closing, we will present a statement, a summary statement on the future of tigers to Dr. Siva, who is an honorary member of the Global Tiger Forum, and he has kindly agreed to take this statement from our conference to the Global Tiger Forum. And that will close Singapore Tiger Week. So please do come back tomorrow for this last session and invite your colleagues and friends as well, and family too. We hope to have a lot of people. So thank you very much, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Good.
Bye.
Bye.